Hello everyone and welcome to another playoff game from WARNO League. Today we start with Division 2 and we start with a hot game with the biggest content creator of Eugen games out there on the left side, VulcanHDGaming, coming in here with the 79th Guards Tank Corps, and on the right side we have MrPresident coming in with the 7th Panzer Division. And before we go in, once more, a shout out to Match Arena, guys, where you can support this tournament for free by using the contribution links here, for example, like Simon Soltes and Hot Koi did, for example, using the BetterHelp link or visiting the websites of Lucid Sounds and Power A without having to pay anything. But if you want to help out even more and you want to contribute directly, everything like that is really appreciated as well. For example, Sinbad did so with 315 bucks, Dev Mingler did so with 50 bucks, Mukadi with 40. Big thanks to all of you guys out there who supported the tournament directly with money or by doing the sponsor stuff here, which also got us more than 40 bucks now for free together with the claimed codes. So big thanks there. And then let's have a short look on the bracket that is up here. A lot of good names here. Genra, nice. Fantix, well-known. Attack Power, obviously. A nice guy with a nice YouTube channel as well. Decorrectual, later we know from a couple of previous tournaments as well, but a couple of not so well-known names as well. MrPresident, Matrine, and Ajor. People who still have to prove themselves, but they made it already to the playoffs, so let's see how much further they can make it. Vulcan versus MrPresident, here the first one on the upper end on the bracket. Let's see how it goes. Yes, the bands in this lovely best of 3 for the maps were Geisa, Chemicals, and Two Lakes. So Defro was Vulcan's pick here in game 1, as he was player 1, and then we have Vertigo and Two Ways for the potential game 2 and 3. And the division bans here in game 1 were 3rd US banned by Vulcan and 35th Air Assault banned by his opponent, by MrPresident, as Vulcan has played a lot of 35th Air Assaults with a lot of success lately, so that ban absolutely makes sense. If you want to see more of Vulcan's group stage games, check them all out on his YouTube channel. Really good performance there as well. Got first in his group by beating Genra, who was, in general, seen as one of the favorites. So really good results there. And Vulcan really has put himself into a position of one of the top favorites for the tournament. But MrPresident didn't do half bad either in the group stage. So let's see how he can hold up against Vulcan here on the lovely map of Death Row. Alpha is obviously the hot point here. And 7th Panzer is still an absolute powerhouse of like really good mid-tier stuff in it. Like Shilka, anti-air guns that are good, MiG-21 bombers that are good, Mi-24Ds that are nice mid-tier helicopters, and T-72s and T-55s that are nice cheap tanks. TO-55 still 45 points, so these are nice. For still being really dirt cheap. And then you got the T-72s, which are, yes, got nerfed slightly again, but they're still pretty good for what they do. Still really cost efficient. But on the other side, Vulcan with the 79 obviously has the top end stuff on his side. Has the OSAS Tunguskas, has the TADUs and TADUDs, has the MiG-31 fighters, and so on. But maybe struggles a bit with cost efficiency sometimes. Like that's a bit of the issue of 79th and 3rd US, that they sometimes have the issue of getting a cost-efficient combined arms out there. They still can do it, but not as well as other divisions. Both divisions, not the most amazing when it comes to forward deployment. I would say with the Spezialaufklärer, you have a solid option as the 7th, but we don't see these guys around. We just see normal Aufklärers and UATs here. Actually, 6 of them is quite a lot of them. That's really a heavy investment into recon here on the right side from MrPresident. But let's see how this goes, as the action has started. BMP one piece with Fagot ATGMs coming up. SBW 40P2 coming up into Delta to get a this point captured. 2 CVs on the other side for Vulcan, 1 for the middle, 1 for Bravo, it seems. So Vulcan will have the tick at the beginning, but let's see how it goes. The ATGMs coming in, a lot of elf clearers, so we have really not that much variety in the units here. But Mr. President investing into a solid setup here. MiG-21 rocket coming in as well. Can be a pretty nice tool as well, but there is solid AA here from the get-go. At least in the center, with the OSA and the Mi-24V AA. Mi-8 already going for some scouting actions here for Vulcan. Doesn't want to get hit in the rear line by any shenanigans that could come in there. And yeah, that's hot. Motostrelki Medis coming in the north. Medis with now 6 rockets. Pretty nice. Like, had been solid before, but with 6 ATGM missiles, they are way more efficient for their price again. Shilka coming up nicely here as air defense. Not the best at stopping anything from dropping because they have such low range against aircraft, but they still have decent enough range that they do good damage, and with 2 of them you still can relatively reliably kill something if it flies directly over them. And against helicopters, they stun them down and kill them off relatively quickly as well with their quad triple 23mm that way. Yeah, so a nice, lovely AA piece. Relatively cost efficient, 80 points, relatively cheap there. You have to be careful, as they can be hit by seed, so you have to micro them, as otherwise you might lose them to some seed plane play. Seed plane play in general has become better again, but it's still not that great, so you don't see them super often, but you should still be prepared to play against it. Unlucky movement there of the BMP-1P just before they were able to at least unload the ATGM. They got hit there by the Motostrelki Medis with a side shot. Motostrelki Medis getting the kill there. Whilst now Mr. President brings in more CVs as well, brings in a couple more TO-55s, going for cost-efficient stuff. T-55 AM2 for the south side, and a couple more BMPs with Panzerjägers actually coming in. Trying to go in here, stopping any BMPs or so on from moving into this forest. Whilst Vulcan has a pretty defensive setup as well, has the +3 ticking. Yeah, no major plan here from Vulcan. Vulcan usually a pretty conservative player in his playstyle, not doing anything fancy, but he has the macro and micro to do that pretty damn well. I mean, he plays Fusion games for over 10 years by now, I think, or at least for 10 years, but yeah, like, so he knows how to play them, for sure. And he lately also practiced 1v1s quite a bit. Like, if you check his streams, he practiced Steel Division and WARNO 1v1s quite a bit. So he is prepared now. Like, in the early times of his tournament play, he really struggled with the meta a bit, with the understanding of the meta, especially in Steel Division. But by now, he has that figured out, and since then, he has become a pretty scary opponent. And I kind of expect him to see him in the next division, in Division 1. But obviously, Mr. President can thwart that plan. So let's see how it goes. Aufklärer trying to move in the north. TO-55 getting a kill here on some infantry. BMP-2 though, for some sneaky action here, moving through. Did touch the Aufklärer. Aufklärer in the north, trying to stay in the forest here as well. Trying to get behind enemy lines a bit, but are getting hunted. Vulcan is vigilant there. Doesn't want to get that through. Mi-24D AT is around. Not the greatest ATGMs on a helicopter. The Phalang P is pretty short range, pretty low damage, but it's still an ATGM, and especially against BMP-1s and so on, that doesn't matter too much. Like, the damage is still good enough to hit them hard. But this Mi-8 of Vulcan is still running its mission up and down. Will run out of fuel eventually, but it will take a while. The Mi-8 has a good amount of fuel load for recon helicopter, the exceptional optics really helping with spotting stuff. And I like the idea here of Vulcan using it like this. I'm not sure if it's really efficient, but I like the base idea behind it. I think you rather should invest into 2 and run them on one side, like run them on their duty on one side of the forest. It's a lot of dead time once they travel around here. But still, A cool idea. T62, BMP2s moving in here, Motostrelki, BMP coming in. Akatsia, Vulcan bringing in the artillery. We'll put some pressure that way on Mr. President. Both sides having similar, like actually kind of identical artillery strength. Issue for Vulcan is that affording supply trucks in 79 is really expensive because you have a really expensive logistics tab. So that's not that easy. BMP2 here of Vulcan paying off already though. Mr. President will find the BMP2 afterwards, but it got a nice kill. T55AM2 though should win this fight. Oh, lucky for Vulcan there. Oh, that is really lucky for Vulcan. Gets the bailout crit there onto the T55AM2 with the ATGM and gets the kill afterwards with the Conquerors. BMP2 down to 1 hit point. Oh my, the luck of this guy. That's quite unfortunate here for Mr. President. At least realizes what happened. Unloads the Mudschützen here. Doesn't lose them, but still painful and annoying to deal with. Maybe should bring the Mi-24D down here. Okay, another Mi-24D is coming up to do the job. TO-55 still in the forest here. Now T-62 M1 is coming up for them though. And that's going to be problematic. The Motostrelki here not unloading. In the center, still a stalemate. Both sides fine with the status quo there for now. Well, the TO-55 nearly gets the T-62. But 2 hit points remain. Aufkleber and TO-55 over here still try to go deeper. That's the BMP2, gets the SPW down here. Gets the next one as well, yeah. The SPWs can't do anything about it. We need the Mi-24D here to get the kill. TO-55 gets killed off as well. Second one. So only the Aufklärer remaining. Trying to run away, but they're getting chased by a lot of units. Vulcan doesn't want any of the shenanigans behind his lines. So the hunting squad's out. Should maybe find a helicopter. Yeah, Mi-24V is on the way here. OSA's coming up. So Vulcan really standard setup of the front line. Going slowly but surely. And then now with the artillery has a good option of dealing with the enemy artillery here as well. Yeah, both 120mm now are on the fire. Will get hit here. That's the BMP2 is still alive here. Not quite sure how that happened. Ooh, thank you, Mr. Bowser. Thanks for the raid with 51 viewers. Hello, everyone, to a bit of WARNO League here. As VulcanHDGaming himself is playing in the playoffs of the WARNO League. Mudschützen BTR will get the BMP2. And this finally gets killed off after killing off so many units here with its luck on the bailout onto the T55AM2. Really, really lucky thing. So, yeah, let's see how this goes, everyone. Osa moving up. Vulcan is just such a solid gamer when it comes to to Fusion games. I must say this is looking like so stock standard, but it's functioning. I think he has a slight advantage. And the BMP2 here, ooh, that could be nasty for the BMP CV over here. That thing is in trouble. Mr. President is reacting, is trying to bring in units up to the north to try to prevent the breakthrough here. Is realizing something is up there, but doesn't quite have the forces at hand yet. The 2 helicopters could be really helpful though, as there's no AA whatsoever here in Vulcan's force. One omission there. And that could cost him all these units. If these 2 Mi-24Ds would go for it, actually I think they could wreak a lot of havoc here, but they're not doing so just yet. So the push of Vulcan could work out. Mi-24 actually moving to the south. BMP2 here finally killed off. Aufklärer behind the line here, killed off by the helicopter as well. Vulcan maybe moving a couple too many units there. Like these guys could have moved the other way already. Leave the Mi-24 to its job. Where's the... Okay, the Mi-8 needs to get moving again. Artillery is doing its job. Got rid of one of the mortars. But another mortar has come in. Second one survived with 1 hit point. Should be a bit more active, the Akatsias. The Akatsias can break positions, like for example this ATGM position here, pretty nicely. Whilst in the north, Motostrelki and BTRs are continuing up their push. Mi-24 trying to get the kill. Yeah, CV finally got found here by the BMP2. MiG-21 Oh no. Oh no. Why can't you just why can't you just read it out as a word? Lol. Also, thanks for the sub Demicore and El Bowser. Much appreciated. Much appreciated to both of you. Getting us closer to me in a lovely uniform for the finals. And so yeah, if you want to see me wearing a fancy hat and a nice jacket and a nice shirt and doing a bit of LARPing for the finals, but not full-on cringe LARPing, just a bit of historical replay of my father, not my grandfather. Not gonna go there, guys. We're not gonna do this for Steel Division. I promise. You... Yeah, we are now more than a third way there. If you want to see me wearing this lovely hat and so on. Couple more subs, guys. Couple more Twitch primes and so on. Let's go. Well, Vulcan here is going on the +2. T55's in the rear. T55. All sitting here. Also, I think my great-grandfather's uniforms are finally burned since a couple of years, so no way I can, yeah, I don't have access to the Steel Division 2 LARPing, luckily. MiG-21 is flying around. Ooh! Getting killed off here by the AA. Osa's getting the kill. MiG-21 hunting for the Mi-24, gets the kill there, but gets killed off as well. While artillery still lands on the mortars. Mortars in general not doing too much here for MrPresident. Like, usually mortars most of the time want to use for smoke at the moment, so that you can then do a big infantry push. In the meantime, TO-55s finding the mortar strelkies in the north with their flamethrowers, pinning them down before the RPGs can kill them off. So TO-55s here doing a good job, and now only having infantry without AT in front of them. Saperis and Saperi RPOs. So the TO-55 really starting to pay off up here for MrPresident, but Vulcan above 600 points by now. Gets a CV in here as well, so will keep out the +2, actually. And this Saperi even has an RPG, so is scary for the TO-55s. As the RPG 7VL has a decent penetration as well with 18, so gotta be careful there. T-55, AM2s coming up as well. BMP2 will get overwhelmed, as the Mi-24D is on the hunt still. Osano and Strela finally have come up here, so yeah, the helicopters would have had an easy time here up till now, but just as they are coming along, the AA arrives as well, so this might end badly now for the Mi-24 over here. Strela getting the first missile out. Ooh, does miss though. And does miss the second one, and that's actually quite terrible for the Strela. If the Osa wouldn't be around. Osa saves the Strela, gets the stun onto the Mi-24D. As Strela got stunned here as well. Mi-24 down to 5 hit points. Gets down to 1 hit point from the Strela. Strela finishes the job now. So down it goes. Down with the Mi-24D. 2 more coming in the center, but there's a good amount of Strelas and Osas here as well, so they will have a rough time. Osa trying to get on target here. Gets the first one, stunned down, gets it killed. Osa pretty efficient at helicopter killing. Second Mi-24D gets found as well, already stunned. Was able to dive below the tree line just last second, but comes up for 1 more second, and there it goes. T-80UD has arrived as well, so this is really the problem. Like, if you leave 79 enough time to get these big boys out, together with good air defense, together with a decent amount of recon, and so on. Beating 79th is just so tough with 7th. As 7th can win those mid-tier fights, and they kind of want to fight all the time, because they have such a cost-efficient, all-around, solid combined arms with the T-72s, the T-55s, the helicopters, the solid infantry with the Modschützen. But if you leave 79th to get up all their fancy toys, it's really tough to beat them here as 7th. And I think MrPresident gave Vulcan here a bit too much room to breathe, as Vulcan is moving on here. And T-62 M1s are moving up, trying to get into the forest up here. Flammenpanzer, TO-55 moving up, Saperi Apio under pressure, so at least the CV is pushed out here. MrPresident brings it back to a 50-50 when it comes to points, but needs to get some pressure somewhere on the battlefield. T55 AM2s coming up all across the board. Couple more Panzerjäger and Watschützen in the north, but you can't win the fight here in the open. Not when on the other side there's now 2 T80 UDs. Yeah, Vulcan really has the combined arms online now. Another T80U. Maybe going a bit overboard now with the heavy tonks. You don't need that many actually. 2 T80 UDs locked down on this whole section basically on their own. As there's little with high penetration. Like you have a lot with medium penetration. Like 14 to 18 you have a lot, but you have nothing that really penetrates 21 penetration. Frontal armor in an effective manner. You can only whittle them down with time. SU-22 with ATGMs and cluster bombers are basically your only chance, and even the SU-22 needs 2 hits. It actually gets both hits, but even with 30 penetration ATGMs, you don't one-shot the T-80 UDs, which is really, really rare that those things need multiple shots, but for these they do. So yeah, this SU-22 got lucky that it got both in, and Vulcan maybe a bit slow on the smoke there, but still now has the second T-80U here, and the T-55 push of MrPresident is fizzling out in the north. T-62's relatively fine in helping out against the T-55. Pretty cost-efficient tanks themselves, like actually cheaper than T-55 AM, as they have less rate of fire, but they have the better penetration. So they, when it comes to the first shot, the T-62 wins out on the short-range fights. MiG-23 with HE bombs coming in, trying to hit the T-62s. Actually gets both of them killed. Ooh, and survives the Osa and the Strela. MiG-23 here, pretty lucky, but still doesn't allow for a push as all the other units of MrPresident died beforehand. And now the TUD, the E80UD and the T-62s are moving forward. A bit of infantry support, a bit of recon here would be nice for Vulcan. Maybe even a recon helicopter would help out. Tanks in WARNO are pretty blind, so moving them head on into this is a bit scary again, especially with Panzerjägers coming around. 2 Panzerjägers nonetheless. But they're not unloaded just yet. Oh, MrPresident, please, please unload them. This might end badly. Maddie's coming in with ATGMs from the side. Panzerjägers need to unload here, as the MiG-21 tries to kill the T-80B, struggles with doing so though, and gets killed off by the AA. Panzerjägers finally out. They have 2 RPG-7VR with 20 penetration. If they can get any side shots onto the T-80UDs, those things die pretty quickly here, but they need to move in onto it. Panzerjäger still not moving here, and the Rajvetka find the CV in the middle. Vulcan back to a +3, and MrPresident in a world of trouble. Pushing in the south, T-55 and BMP-1P in a solid position here, I guess. But ATGM's still scary from up top. And Vulcan, with a quick reaction here, moving all the AA away. Doesn't want to get those things killed. And the central position is pretty desperate here now. BMP actually gets a nice penetration onto the T-62. Panzerjägers move through the open though to try to get on top of the T-80UD. Panzerjäger over here gets the T-62. Will shoot a couple more shots into the T-80UD, but Vulcan quick enough there with the reaction as well. T-80UD disengaging. And yes, the Panzerjägers have good penetration on their RPGs, but they still need side shots to deal damage. Against the 9 side armor, they do good amount of damage. Against rear armor, obviously even better. But against frontal armor, they still only do 1 damage per hit with their RPGs. Whilst Vulcan is taking up here. In the north, T-62 M1 moving in, moving up, ADU rolling forward as the +3 is on. T-55 AM2 over here, TADBV gets hit, Panzerjäger gets hit as well. And nice kills in general. Akatsia hitting the 120mm mortars. They are going down. And Vulcan on a good way to victory here in game number 1. Pioneers under fire. 20 minutes remaining, but I don't think it will take that long as the central line of Mr. President completely annihilated. TADUD still alive. TADU in the north should still be absolutely fine as well. Little here to deal with it. And that's really the issue of this matchup. And that's why I said, like, you need to be aggressive from the get-go with 7th Panzer in this matchup, as 79th otherwise just out-trades you in the long run. It has the better late-game tools, and this is exactly what happens here. And Mr. President surrenders in game number 1. Vulcan in the end, with a dominant fashion, to be honest here, when you see the KD, that underlines it even more. 2 to 5 KD, 2.5 to 1 KD. So, yeah. Pretty damn good show here from Vulcan, playing the 79th exactly as it's supposed to be played. And Mr. President giving him a bit too much room there to do so as well. Let's see if in game number 2 they can find a better matchup and put Vulcan for a bit more trouble than in this game number 1, because I think Vulcan is the most vulnerable in the early game. If you let him set this up, he has played this kind of scenario in team games so many times, and his multitasking is pretty fine for 1v1 by now as well. Doesn't get super focused on one spot anymore, as he maybe did also back in the early days, but by now has adjusted to the 1v1 pretty well. So yeah, GGVP to Vulcan here in game number 1, and Mr. President has to step it up to get it out of Vulcan's hands here in game number 2. Let's see how that goes in a minute when we go in there. So here we go. Game number 2, Vulcan versus MrPresident. Vertigo is the map, meaning that 2 wastes would be the final map if these two would get to a draw on this map. And the bans are pretty standard for this map as well. As I misclicked there. Okay, here we go again. As the bans are 79 and 3rd US. Vulcan on the left side coming in with the beautiful KDA Berserker Fort that was really strong last patch, but received a hell of a lot of nerfs as well since then, so let's see how strong it will hold up. Whilst MrPresident brings in the 82nd Airborne, which for the first time in a long while got kind of buffed with the last patch, as in all the previous patches it more or less got nerfed, but with the stronger helicopters plus Apaches now being 2 per card, the rocket Apaches, its Hello tab is really strong, and it can bring in quite a bit of power here as well. So let's see how this goes. So yeah, here we go. 82nd on the right side for MrPresident, Vulcan with KDA. So this should be quite a lot of fun. PT-76 is coming up, Spetsnaz and Spetsnaz OP in the forward deployment. The special forces that you get as KDA, quite helpful. Behind it we have some Rapiras coming up, couple of CVs for the 2+3 zones that always can be pretty helpful. On the other side, no CVs, so... Oh no, we have CVs, 1 CV as well. Yeah, you don't want to give up a +6 tick to your opponent. That hurts you quite a lot, so this should be quite interesting, as Vulcan, with the Spetsnaz here, has a really nice formation set up. I'm not a big fan of the PT-76s, to be honest. I mean, the Recon one at least also has good optics, but good optics doesn't help you too much. Good optics really is not that strong at the moment, in my eyes. And the 2 frontal armor is really just nothing, and 10 hit HE, or no, 10 penetration with heat is also not that much. You take a lot of shots to kill most things, so not the biggest fan there. Ooh, and Spetsnaz have been forgotten. Okay, quick reaction there from Vulcan at least. They don't stay idle for too long, but they might arrive just a slight bit too late now, as MrPresident is coming in with a lot of forces here, including some heavy MGs that try to go directly through the center here into the zone. 1 CV has arrived. Short +3 take for MrPresident before 2 CVs of Vulcan will get Vulcan a +3 take for a while. Kiowa Warrior for the north. I'm not a big fan of the Kiowa Warrior. I like normal Kiowa better with its rockets. I think this thing is a bit too expensive for being a 4 hit point helicopter. It's too efficient to just suicide onto the top of them. And I more use the Kiowas for their exceptional optics than for Hellfire ATGMs. But still a relatively nice tool. Though, especially in this matchup, I don't think they're worthwhile, as there's not that many expensive tanks on the other side, for which it is worthwhile to use the big ATGMs. Whilst units of MrPresident will be able to unload Spetsnaz and Spetsnaz OP, move into this. Spetsnaz GRU with their Me-2 helicopter coming in, not with the Me-8 rockets, so yeah, Me-2 will be sold, will go back to base. Airborne scouts arriving in the south. These are pretty nice because they have the AT-4, supported by a little bird helicopter down here for now. Well, yeah, Vulcan now up to a +3. Kiowa Warrior actually trying to go behind the enemy lines. I don't think that is a pretty great play. Like, 1 cheap fighter and this thing is out of the skies and you're down good amount of points. 2 CVs actually coming in from MrPresident. 1 for the Foxtrot, 1 for the center here. As Vulcan brings in the Rapira into a nice spot, brings in the ZSU 57, which is still a pretty good ATG AA piece. Not super insane anymore, as it got nerfed a bit in range against air and a bit in accuracy. But the 50 cults here will kill off the Pioneers, but T-62 has laid fire upon them by now as well. Nothing really here for MrPresident to deal with this T-62. Surprised that we don't see any ATGMs or so around here. For sure an omission on the side of Mr. President to have no long-range AA whatsoever here. Meanwhile, Spetsnaz coming in the north. Moving into the front line. PT-76 sitting up there in the north. Humvees being sold. Whilst AH-6 Little Bird moves forward to the front line with its rockets. Little Bird finds the PT-76 actually over here that tried to be a sneaky guy. Or a sneaky guy preventer. I'm not quite sure what its idea was, but it might not survive to do whatever it was planned to do. Ooh, Little Bird just runs out of rockets before it can kill the BT-76. Yeah, Little Bird struggles a bit with finishing off things. As you usually won't have 2 Little Birds to do the job and then fly them back and reload. As they only have 14 relatively small missiles with the rockets with the Hydra. The Hydra not the most amazing of rockets there. And Mr. President under quite a bit of pressure down here in the south. Bradley trying to hold the line in the north. What's the BT-76 there is coming around for the flank. Humvees being sold. We have the first A-10 rocket on the battlefield. But 2 good AA pieces here on the other side. The OSA and the 57mm AA. So I feel like the A-10 might be in trouble. Ooh, especially now that the MiG-23 comes around. At least gets the MiG-23 out of the skies as well, but goes down right after. Yeah, the head-on for Vulcan there. Not the greatest of ideas with the MiG-23. So at least get some value out of this A-10, but not quite what you want. Like, those things can be absolute beasts if you set them up correctly. Not quite what happened here, though. KDA Schützen, meanwhile, get killed off by the 50 cal, though. 50 cals, pretty good damage dealers. Whilst Vulcan now has a CV in the north as well. Big stalemate up there. And Mr. President needs some anti-tank around here. Some bit longer range anti-tank, that is. Airborne Dragons will try to provide that. As the Dragon 2, relatively decent when it comes to dealing with T-62s. If they can use their Dragon. Dragon, though, only has 1,575 meter range. Not super long range on their ATGMs, so you still want to get them into buildings and fire out of cover when the T-62 gets too close for comfort. And it's another T-55A moves up. T-62 moving around. I would like to see a Bradley or a TOW-2 down here. Kiowa Warrior is an idea as well, but there's quite a lot of AA. The Kiowa Warrior in the north seemingly has been shut down already. Rapira shooting up some infantry over here. Airborne Dragon trying to move across the open. BT-76 still on the move to try to find the Humvee CV behind the line here. But it's the first M1IP Abrams coming up. I like that. And yeah, the Dragon guys over here should be pretty helpful. Yeah, one Dragon from over here can do good damage to the T-55A and the T-62. AA in the north is functional. Avenger getting that plane killed off there. But the Airborne Dragon that tried to cross above the open ground are killed off. 7mm still alive. Bradley tries to move around. Under fire by the Rapira though. Ooh, has to be really, really careful there. Doesn't want to get shot by that for any longer duration. Single hit of the ATGMs from this thing can be pretty painful for the Bradley. Maybe even deadly. M1IP trying to move around. Vulcan having the SPW here basically as a kind of a recon unit behind the enemy lines. Only 20 points, so they are pretty cheap. But M1IP has found it. Will kill it off easily there. And should be able to do some nice pressuring onto this part of the map as well. KDA Schützen moving into the buildings here. Meanwhile, OSA trying to get the Kiowa. Kiowa has to be careful. Good micro there from Mr. President. Lucky though that 2 missiles both missed. Well, the CV has arrived for Vulcan as well. Hasn't unloaded here though yet. So it might actually be Mr. President who gets the tick first. And then Vulcan might figure out, oh, I forgot to unload my CV back here. And we'll unload it afterwards. So we might stay at a stalemate. Dragon is around, but doesn't quite have the range here to hit the T-55. T-55 is just slightly out of range. Whilst more and more KDA Schützen move forward. KDA Schützen really good at tanking, not so amazing at damage dealing. You kind of want to mix them with other units. Osa has to reload, so the F-111 cluster will survive and will hit some infantry here with the cluster, but that doesn't deal too much damage. And the M1IP actually got side-shotted there by the T-62, allowing the T-62 to take out a way better tank, 200 points versus 75 points. Really not what should happen. Like, the M1IP should be the biggest boy on the battlefield here by a long shot, but side armor on all tanks is pretty low, so if you reveal your side armor here in these fights, it will end badly for you. Airborne Dragon might be able to get some Dragon shots out finally, but with really low accuracy and might get stunned down any second now, as a lot of T-55s here rolling in for Vulcan. They're not as dirt cheap as they have been before, but for 55 points they're still pretty cost efficient, and you can still spam quite a couple of them per minute. So Vulcan still working heavily with numbers here. A lot of KDA, a lot of Spetsnaz. Only one M1 IP here to stem the tide. This is once more looking like a precarious situation for Mr. President here on the right side. Kiowa Warrior might be really helpful though. Gets the first one. Hellfire coming in. Coming in nicely. Super fast flying ATGMs with good accuracy and good damage. One-shotting the T-55s. Good hits there. The Humvee has to be careful. Maybe should rotate down here. I think it should stay in the zone. M1 IP moving forward. Ooh, that's risky. I mean, the KDA should only have the RPG-7, which has low accuracy and not the most amazing amount of damage. But with side shots, it still will deal okay damage against you. And even with frontal armor, over time, it will whittle you down. So, not sure you really want to go there. But the T-55As are pushing through the town as well. Airborne Dragons will most likely try to get some shots off, but they have minimum range, so they can't super easily do that. The Kiowa still has one missile left though. Will use that one up now. And will kill another T-55. M1 IP moving in here. Still 7 hit points. Artillery trying to hit around here. CV is not there though. M1 IP still trying to hold the ground. But more infantry is coming up in the north. A big push with infantry over the open from Mr. President. A bit of support from the Bradley. The Rapira has gone down. So that was a nice kill. And with the autocannon of the Bradley that is completely unopposed currently, that push actually might work out. The Humvees here, not the biggest fan of them, using them as scouts. I think at the moment it's not really worthwhile anymore to use vehicles as scouts. You usually, nearly always should sell them. Or keep them around for redeployment, but 20 points for just getting them shot is only in really some few edge cases worthwhile. If you know, like, the enemy has limited amounts of ATGM shots and you want to bait all of them out or something like that, that's where you use these guys still. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth the effort for 20 points that you could rather invest into something that actually can shoot the enemy. 20 points actually quite a bit. Concourse here trying to hit the Bradley. Bradley, good smoke there from Mr. President, but at the same time, southern situation hasn't really improved. Another helicopter is around. Osa though, and 57mm could easily move forward here and kill these off quite quickly. So, not really a great position still, as these helicopters can't do too much damage. And the Bradley in the north has fallen. The push in the north has been killed off as well. And Vulcan only has a 57mm AA and a Spetsnaz in here now, but that's more than Mr. President has, so it's good enough to hold the ground. Whilst Vulcan keeps the +2 tick in the south online. A Sheridan now coming in as the next kind of tank. And M1 IP trying to rotate around, as we have 2 Malkas on the battlefield, and that's really scary. Like, if the Malkas start to shoot into this forest up here, for example, they could really start to murder the AA, murder the Humvees over there. M1 IP trying to engage over around here. Sheridan moving up. Engineer Flash trying to get in there as well. Cluster Bomber trying to go for T-55s. Really expensive plane for dealing with T-55s though. And this time around it might go down. Ah, survives those 2 hit points. Will take a while to come back though. Gets at least a supply truck as well for its efforts there, together with the T-55. But still, not the biggest fan of 250 point cluster bombers in this matchup, as the enemy tanks You need to hit quite a lot of them to make them worthwhile. Besnat 3RU moving up, a lot more T-62s moving forward as well. F4E Phantom actually here, killing off a helicopter. That has to be careful where it flies around. And MiG-23 tries to get it out of the sky. Both sides heavily damaged. MiG-23 down to 7 hit points. Book comes in, finishes off the Phantom. That's the airborne scouts. Seemingly will try to sneak in here. Me too though. Flying around, trying to find enemy. Recon. Sneak attacks. But a couple more airborne dragons moving in the north. Another Bradley follows them up. But this time around, Vulcan is setting up a better defense line. Conquerors, T-55s, all to stop this push from happening once more. And this is a pretty good position for our player in red. Vulcan once more in a really nice, stable position. And with the Malka now aiming up. And most likely dealing some damage here. And that could be a lot of damage actually, as the Airborne Engineer and the M1IP are pretty clumped up over here. If MrPresident doesn't react immediately once the shots are flying, this might end in disaster. 3 units with 1 salvo that could get killed here. 300 points biting the dust at once. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, M1IP already down to half the hit points. Second shot lands, all the infantry is dead. M1IP down to 2 hit points. Like last shot landing, doesn't quite get the kill. Okay, M1IP at least will survive, but still a pretty good salvo there, putting a lot of pressure onto MrPresident once more, taking away the infantry CQC firepower that was supposed to enable a push here. So Vulcan is in trouble. No, MrPresident is in trouble. Vulcan, with the advantage of position and of long-term firepower or damage potential with these artillery pieces that will whittle you down. And in the war of attrition, Vulcan for sure has the better cards here right now. And I'm surprised that we don't see more helicopters here out of MrPresident's, or more airplay. Like, pretty conservative units for 80 seconds, with like only airborne dragons coming along, a couple of Bradleys. Like, not quite what the division stands for in my eyes. And well, airborne dragon over here ran into a bit of fire from that Malka as well. Sheridan being forced to rout as well. T-62s coming up in numbers. And no such artillery on the other side. Cluster bomber might be really efficient here if it can get its clusters off. And it does. But Vulcan with a quick reaction. Actually, nice on the spread out. Might only lose 1 or 2. Ooh, is actually really lucky. 2 go down low, but they don't even get killed off. And the cluster bomber bites the dust. And cluster bomber really didn't pay off with that. If it would have killed the 2 C-62s, that would have been maybe somewhat worthwhile. But as I said, in this matchup with so many cheap tanks on the other side, I'm not the biggest fan of cluster bombers. M1IP coming in on the other side for MrPresident. And this is a tough position here for MrPresident now. Artillery trying to snipe the Humvee CV over here now as well. Malka and 130mm now. So Vulcan going all out on the artillery part now. The Malkas also trying to snipe the airborne scouts over there. Airborne scouts over here at least might snipe the UWATs. Give MrPresident a +1 for a while, but 700 points different already is quite major. Artillery here is annoying for the units that are around here as well. And the airborne scouts might be in for a rough time here as well. Aufklärer has to retreat at least for now, as the Bradley moves forward. T-55's not in position to deal with that. And the Malka now hits the airborne over here. Not quite on target just yet. Airborne dragon will get killed off over here. Avenger not on target. And a lot of MiG-21s here coming around. Hitting the Bradleys pretty well. Not quite killing them. Airborne scouts go down though. MiG-21 will get out of here. Phantom too slow to chase them. More Sheridans coming in. This is also, why using Phantom if you have F-15? I find the Phantoms pretty terrible. Like, yes, they are relatively cheap, but not that cheap actually. And with their slow speed and the Sparrows and the AM9's low accuracy, I really don't find much use for them. Especially with the F-15 around, which is just so much more efficient. CV goes into the south. T-62 is moving up. Sheridan trying to stand its ground. But most likely will get killed off here relatively quickly as well. M1IP at least gets one of them. Sheridan does some good amount of damage. M1IP does force the second T-62 to rout as well. KDA not finding a hit with its RPG and gets actually killed off before it can do much damage. Ooh, this push actually now might work out. T-62 is coming out a bit piecemeal. Forces them to engage badly there. And if the OSA could get sniped, or if like the AA could get taken out, this could be a really nice opening here. Kiowa is around. Doesn't quite outrange the OSA. OSA with its nice anti-helicopter range is quite helpful for that. As this, for example, could be potentially sniped by the Kiowa at long range. F-16 also coming in with a bombing run. Ooh, that's a nice hit there. Once more, losing all the units they attacked with over here. F-16 actually gets lucky there with a couple of nice hits. The MiG-23 also crashes into the T-55 here, stressing it out a bit. And Mr. President kills off the CV with the bombing run here of the F-16, allowing a +5 actually to happen right now with the snipe on the CV in the rear. CV in the rear gets replaced now, so it will be a +2 in a second. But Mr. President, with that short +5, actually catching up quite a good margin there to the points of Vulcan and puts good amount of pressures down here. M1IP though now has fallen down here to the T-62s. Went a bit too deep again. What the second M1IP is still around. OSA did retreat as it is out of ammo. And the 57mm flak still out of position for now. T-62s go down to the Kiowa Warrior, which should disengage now. Before the flak comes for it. The helicopters here in a bit of a bad spot. Heavy Hawk and Little Bird are moving away. Kiowa not so far though, and that's an issue. Kiowa actually trying to shoot it with the ATGM, but gets killed off before that can reach the target. M1IP moving forward. Other helicopters now under heavy fire by the 57mm as well, and that thing kills them really quickly. Big issue here for Mr. President, as Vulcan with 157mm wipes out 4 helicopters here, and that's pretty painful. Those 4 helicopters could have done a lot of more damage if Mr. President would have microed them a bit better, a bit further away. As the M1IP hits up the Spaznuts over here, but lost a lot of the support here as well. Like, a bloody fight on all ends for both sides. I would say Vulcan still has a slight advantage in the trades though, and especially with the artillery still in the rear, has still the longevity, so Mr. President's attacks need to continue to have success, and with the MiG-21 spam here now, against no AA whatsoever, that seems to be unlikely, and I don't know how you want to get that under control without F-15s. Like, F-15s really are the solution here, but we don't see them at all from Mr. President. Only the Phantoms, and that's, in my eyes, a big blunder in the deck building part of this game. Sheridan hitting the KDA Schützen. Vulcan bringing in the CV in the north again. So it's a draw there once more, and the Malkas and co start to do their work again. HE bomber trying to get through. Gets shut down though. M1IP went down. Another one coming up, but still no AA. And A-10 rockets once more trying to come in, but resupply for the OSAs around. 57mm is still around as well. F-16 gets hunted here, gets its bombs out, and actually might survive. No, the MiG-23 is faster. And actually does miss though. And the A-10 is behind the MiG-23. MiG-23 actually gets killed off out of the sky by the A-10. Okay, lucky there for Mr. President. But still a lot of good trades to be done to get through this game here now. A-10 trying to move around, but the OSA and the 57mm, and it's flying directly next to the 57mm. That should end pretty badly here for the A-10 once more. Already down to 2 hit points. Gets the OSA at least, but gets killed off before it does any more. Paid off somewhat with the OSA kill though now, as it got the AA plane as well. So somewhat decent, but more work here to be done. M1IP needs to be in the action, otherwise this doesn't work out. The SPWs with their 12 millimeters beating up the airborne T-62, helping with it as well. Cluster bomber trying to come in here. That actually might be successful. The 57mm not doing too well, and the T-62 and the CV both go down. HE bomber trying to come around over here. Flies into the Book though, and that is pretty suicidal. Yeah, Book gets the kill. G-bomber not doing its job, but the cluster bomber here doing well. Like, Mr. President is trying hard, but always that slight bit overextending, it seems like. And then losing the units before being able to win the fight. Vulcan always having a solution to hold the line. And Mr. President is struggling here still to get a cohesive combined arms, whilst Vulcan's artillery is keeping up the long-term pressure. CV in the north under fire. Trying to disengage. Sheridan might save it for now, as the T-55 gets a shot out. Does miss though. Sheridan's ATGM does hit. Will slow down the reload time of the T-55 by a long shot and reduce its accuracy a lot as well. Humvee still under heavy fire though. Sheridan trying to move around. Next T-55 comes up. BW goes down to the Sheridan now, but 1 versus 2, it should not win. And finally some Apache rockets coming up now, as there's little AA. There's still the Book, and there's now another 57mm flak though. So pushing through that won't be easy. Artillery trying to hit the Sheridans in the north, as the airborne scouts are under fire as well. Airborne scouts dropping low here. Sheridan under fire. Sheridan goes down. Airborne and another 50 cal moving in. Airborne Stinger coming up. M1IP moving around. It's 817 points versus 520 points here in this matchup. And Vulcan is still having more of the map. But Mr. President lately with solid trades down here. Just needs to get a bit more combined arms online. And needs to get some way of dealing with the MiG-21 bombers. As whenever units are pushing a bit too far forward, they just get hit by those. KDA Schützen will go down to the Apache rockets here. Apache rocket doing a good job. Disengaging for now. Artillery trying to hit the Humvee here. Whilst back in the rear here. Couple more Sheridans are rolling in. T5A trying to hit the Humvee. KDA get the kill there. 12mm. Still trying to hold the line. Humvee CP in the zone, as we are 817 to 520 points in this game now. Rocket Little Bird hitting the KDA Schützen. Can it get the kill there? Gets the stun. Only does 2 kills though. Or no, 4 kills. Gets it down to 10 hit points. Now tries to move forward to use its minigun, but that will take a long while to get kills. It's not half bad anymore, but it has low range, and it's, as you can see, 1 salvo, 1 kill there. So it will take a while there to get these KDA guys down. Humvee still being used. I would say that's like 1 or 2 more M1IPs by now. Just down to at least 1 more M1IP down to the Humvees that died here for Mr. President. Really not a fan of using them as recon anymore. As the cluster bomber comes in the north. 2 OSAs. Both missed though. Not in the perfect spot with the line of sight there. And T-55, one of them at least going down. Sheridan's still trying to use the ATGMs here. Outranging the T-55 with that. It's quite nice for them. 1 ATGM still flying. Gets the kill. Gets the hit. Only tank with an ATGM on the NATO side. Makes them quite nice. Quite unique. Sheridan, really, really cool tank for sure. Meanwhile in the south, M1IP and Sheridan's pushing forward as well. Spetsnaz under fire. One goes down. And the tank push here is somewhat real. 57mm though. Get rid of the helicopter. And the little bird went down as well. Bradley coming up. Tanks trying to move forward. Couple of rockets coming in. F-15 actually is around. Flying directly over Books. Not to be the greatest idea. Woo, survives with 1 hit point. Cluster bomber coming in from the other side this time around. M1IP went down to the Rapiras. F-15 trying to come around again. Goes down to the 57mm AA. Cluster bomber gets the Sheridan. Stinger gets the cluster bomber, but once more a bloody push here for Mr. President. Once more, just not quite coordinated enough it seems. As the T-62s now will try to murder this Black Hawk that landed here to unload the air rifles. Black Hawk should get the hell up there again. Okay, C-62's lost line of sight on it. Now try to find it again. Black Hawk just needs to be sold now. 75 points worth if you get it back to base. Once the Spetsnaz move forward. Black Hawk under fire will go down here. It's another transport that costs you a lot of points. As Mr. President. 57mm gets bombed down here, but losing a plane for that not worthwhile. And yeah, the cost efficiency is just not on the side of the Blair in blue here. Sheridan's moving forward. Always just that slight bit off with the attacks. Or Vulcan just that slight bit too solid with the defensive lines. Always having the right reaction as well. Not always having the right setup. Like, Vulcan did struggle sometimes here in this game, but always having a solid reaction. Always having a solid follow-up to at least deal once the breakthrough has happened, to contain it, to push it back. So never allowing Mr. President to get into any really, really great spots that then threaten you, your reinforcement roads and so on. Always getting him stopped before that kind of situation occurs. So really well played here from Vulcan so far. And this game looks pretty tough for Mr. President now. As the combined arms has been dealt with. No helicopters, no tanks on the map right now. 10 minutes remaining. Vulcan has the air advantage, has the NAA setup that is good, has the artillery. So breaking this seems to be nigh impossible, as Vulcan now has a +2 in the north. Yeah, this is looking rough here for Mr. President. KDA Schützen moving forward. Aero rifles moving up. T-62s under fire onto the aero rifles. Rifles under fire. Will get shot down here. Will go down to the fire. And over here, Malkas do fire. Try to hit the Humvee. Won't quite get the kill there so far. Stingers. Might get hit here. MiG-21HE. Coming in with bombing runs. Bradley. Trying to hit the KDA Schützen. Flash. Coming in as well. Apache rocket coming for the T-62 M over here. KDA Schützen under fire. 57mm hits the Apache. Apache might go down here. The F-15 lies up around here. F-15 will get out alive. One engineers setting up there, but really little combined arms here around for Mr. President right now. T-62s coming in such big numbers, and Vulcan just doing the KDA now, just flooding the enemy in units. T-55As in the north, +2 is on. Mr. President just didn't get the tools that are so amazing about 82nd online, and missed a bit of the long range firepower at the beginning of the game, which allowed Vulcan a lot of traits that were pretty beneficial there at the beginning that continued to snowball throughout the game, basically. Like, the early game really didn't went Mr. President's way here, and then afterwards, a lot of semi-suicidal attacks ended up with Vulcan in this sweet, sweet spot here with more than 500 points ahead, and Mr. President does surrender at this stage, and Vulcan wins 2-0 with in this best of 3, where Mr. President will advance as the first player in Division 2 into the semifinals, and with that is safe into season in season 1 into Division 1, as the top 4 of Division 2 will advance into Division 1 next season. And we'll see who out of DK Actual and Ajor will be able to face him there. Okay. Oh, still a bit sick. Really annoying. Winter is really annoying, guys. Yeah, GGVP here to Vulcan. Let's have a look. Thanks, Doug Brar. And thanks for the follow, Steuerverhandlung, earlier. Much appreciated. And yep, that's this game. We have now 40 minutes till the live game of WARNO League starts. Yeah, so let's see. Can we... I don't think there's any series that can fit in there. Yeah. Might be happening from Vulcan's side, but attack power will have to step it up there. Get there, I think. Like, Genra and Fantix are pretty strong opponents, so I'm not sure if attack power is just there yet in the SD2 in the WARNO power level. SD2 that might happen actually as well in Division 3, but you will see there how that goes. There's a good amount of competition there as well. I feel like Vulcan looks really, really strong. Like, DK Actual and the Jor, whoever wins there has to step it up. Really face him. I think we're gonna play one ranked here now, and then we go live in 40 minutes with the final game between in Division 2, as it's 1-1 between Phoenix and Rabbit Squirrel there, and they are playing the game at 6 p.m. live, so we're gonna cast that. So yeah, one game. Relaxing my voice a bit. It's still not back to 100% yet. Super annoying. So let's play my 35th air assault for a bit, and then go on with that. Okay. Here we go. Player searching.